Well, good afternoon, councillors and staff, and a special welcome to our two Youth of the Month for November, Philip Jackson from Canowindra and Isla Alcorn from Nashdale, and to teachers and family and friends and ex-mayors, welcome. Welcome everybody to the November council meeting. Please be advised that this council meeting is being recorded and live streamed. By speaking at this meeting, you agree to being recorded and live streamed. Please ensure that if and when you speak, you are respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Cabonne Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this meeting. The recording of this meeting will be made publicly available on Council's website. All right, item 1 is application for leave of absence. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Paul, seconded by Councillor Weaver. We welcome back Councillor O'Ryan, who's had a couple of leave of absence with a shoulder injury. So we've got a full quota, so I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Item 2 is declarations of interest. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Jones, seconded by Councillor Rawson. I have nothing to declare. Has anybody got anything to declare?
I've got moving Australia Day. Funding orders being on.
Thank you. Probably declare that in that meeting, opening of that meeting. Yep, not this one. Nothing else, anybody? Well, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Item 3 is declaration for political donations. Move and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Nash, seconded by Councillor O'Ryan. Yeah, I'll have to watch that. I've got nothing to declare. Anybody got anything to declare? Thank you, everybody. I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. All right, we'll just suspend the meeting briefly. And I've got a couple of very important presentations. All right. Junior Youth of the Month for October is Isla Alcorn. Isla Alcorn, who lives in Nashdale, is 11 years old in Year 6 at Nashdale Public School and was nominated by school principal. Isla is the Nashdale School captain for 2024. She has had an outstanding year in sport and a great model for others, demonstrating that you can achieve great things living and thriving in rural communities and that there are pathways for hard-working, talented athletes. In particular, hockey. Some but not all of Isla's achievements include selection in the New South Wales Open Primary team, represented New South Wales at the National All-School Primary Hockey Championships, captain of Molong Open Primary Hockey team and awarded Best and Fairest in the Orange Comp, member of the Molong Under-14s Premiership winning team, co-captain of Molong's Under-12 team who won Western Conference at the Moorebank First Division Invitational, and member of the Centre Development Western Stars Hockey Program. Swimming, junior girl champion at Manildra Swim Club 23-24. Touch football, under-12s, Orange Thunder, Best and Fairest. Selected West South Suns under-12s rep team. Co-captain the PWSA Green team and runner-up in the Western region. Plays league tag for Orange Sims. Isla is involved in her community through leadership and sporting roles. On behalf of Cabonne Council, I would like to congratulate Isla on her achievements and present her with Junior Youth of the Month for October 24. Congratulations. Obviously, you take it up to your mum. Congratulations, Isla. There's some little goodies in there, I think. Well done, keep up the great work. Senior Youth of the Month for October is Philip Jackson. Philip Jackson's from Moorbell. He is 14 years old and attends Canowindra High School and was nominated by one of his teachers. Philip has had over 95% attendance every year at school and is well liked by all students in his group. Philip has consistently good reports that highlight his helpful and considerate nature in the classroom. Philip participates in all school sporting events including Rural Cup, swimming, athletics and cross-country carnivals, and completed his first year towards a life-saving qualification, which he is keen to finish this year. Philip led the fundraising and volunteered willingness to assist with the push-up challenge and raised the largest amount of any student at the school. This earned his year group a reward barbecue, I should say. He has also raised awareness of mental health through the school community. Philip is caring, considerate and a quiet member of the school. He gets involved in every event and is positive influences and helps other students, always the first person to volunteer and help others. On behalf of Cabonne Council, I would like to congratulate Philip on his achievements and present him with the Senior Youth of the Month award for October. Congratulations, Philip. Well done, mate. Keep up the great work, Philip. Well done. All right, councillors, we will officially suspend the meeting now and stop the recording. We've got a presentation from the Resume our ordinary meeting. And item 4 is mayoral minute of appointments, which I'll move, and I've tabled the report. Anybody, I know Councillor Rawson has, Councillor Jones has, anybody else? Councillor Nash, thank you. Councillor Weaver has, handing one in. Anybody else at all? No? Any verbal? No? Reports? Verbal reports, I mean? All right. I will now put that. All those in favour? Against, carried. Thank you, everybody. Committee of the Whole, could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Batten, second by Councillor Rawson. Does anybody wish to call anything into the Committee of the Whole? Councillor Rawson.
Number 19, please.
19. Thank you. Anything else? All right, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against, that's carried. Item 6 is confirmation of the minutes, and we're moving all those minutes there, and just with a little typing error in the environmental minutes, it should read page 136, the General Manager advised that there being no other nominations, Councillor Rawson is elected. It should be Councillor Nash is elected. Is that correct? So that's just an amendment which the staff will fix up, so just note that. Just a typing error. So is anybody, are we going to move in a second on those minutes? No. Mover and a seconder, moved by Councillor Pearson, second by Councillor Rawson. So just note that that will be changed. Is anybody else good? Any discussion on the minutes at all? No? All right, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against, that's carried. Item 7 is confirmation of the Pools Advisory Committee meeting minutes. Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Nash, second by Councillor Poole. Any discussion on those minutes? Councillor Poole.
Yes, this was a good one. So like sharing positive stuff. So I think on the day of the meeting, I thanked Belinda Mills for all her hard work on progressing to where we are with the pools and unsupervised hours. I think it's absolutely terrific. I probably should have thanked all the staff. It wasn't just her baby, and probably everyone in this room for the vision and foresight to do what we can to keep our pools going. It would be so easy to throw our hands in the air and say it's too hard, but I think we've done really well. And the other thing we touched on in that meeting, and I'd like to say to all the councillors and all our avid listeners tuning in today, is that for the longevity of our pools, the key is we've got to use them and become members. And memberships are what will make our pools sustainable. So, but great work. Good to have some positive stuff. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Well said. It'd be good to get the figures back because driving past the pools, there seems to be a lot of people in them. So it'd be great to see these figures back for the unsupervised attendance and just the general attendance so far. So very good. Anything else? Anybody? No, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Item 8 is the council's meeting schedule for December 24 and January 25. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Weaver, second by Councillor Jones. Any discussion on that? Everybody happy? It's pretty straightforward. Yep. All right, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 9 is the annual report 23-24 and state of the Shire report. Mover, please. Moved by Councillor Poole, thanks. Second by Councillor Nash, thank you. Any discussion? Councillor Batten.
Just a quick comment, and I think we should congratulate the staff who prepared the report. I mean, the state of the Shire report is by far the best that we've had, certainly since the time that the 2 terms have been on council. So just want to pass on congratulations to the staff.
Thank you, well said. Yep. Councillor Paul?
Yeah, I actually agree. The finances were really thorough. Obviously, expect that from Dale. She's terrific. But the State of the Shire report's really professional and easy to read. So, well done.
Very good. Well said also. Anything further? All right, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 10 is the Yeovil Annual Show 25 and 26. Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Nash, second by Councillor Weaver. Any discussion on the public holiday? Nope. I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 11 is Annual School Presentation Awards Events Donation Request. Mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Nash, second by Councillor Jones. Pretty straightforward. Certificates, vouchers, I should say. And as I said, we've been going through and sorting that out offline about attendance, and everything's going all right with that. If there's no further discussion, I'll put that. Councillor Nash? No?
And I was only going to say that the schools look forward, I think, to us presenting this voucher or book or whatever, and it's really great to get there and do it. Yeah. But I don't think we've sort of nominated yet, have we? Who goes where?
Oh, there was an email out, so there's certainly an email out there to put your name down, and certainly can work through that over the next few days. Yeah.
Yeah, but just be aware there's a couple of those that are coinciding with our meeting or our dinner, so on the 17th. So a couple of we can't attend.
Yeah. All right. So if you just double check that emails, or just get in contact with Robin and make sure if you're available to attend any of those, just put your name down. All right. Any further discussion? No. I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, everybody. Item 12 is the Yeovil Preschool Donation Request. Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Poole, second by Councillor Nash. Any discussion on the donation request? Councillor Weaver.
I think that's really great, and it's a great initiative for them to come up with, and it gives a family, or the lucky family, am I on the right one? Yeah. Sorry. It gives the family who wins it great entry into our pools, and I think that's a great outcome.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, excellent. Any other discussion? No? All right, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Item 13 is request for donation, Country Education Fund Australia. Moved by Councillor Poole, second by Councillor Rawson. Any discussion on that at all? All good? Okay, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 14 is proposed lease of portion of Davy Mac Lane, Molong. Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Poole, seconded by Councillor O'Ryan. Any discussion? Councillor Nash.
Yeah, through the Mayor. After reading all the objections and things, I just wonder, are people going to be able to still access this, go through this lane, or is it closed off?
Well, I'll check here, but my thoughts are no.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can confirm that once the property is leased, the person who holds the lease has the right to fence the lease area. There is the intention that council will be placing a condition in the lease for gates, not fencing, but gates that will allow fire access if required.
Would that also allow people to walk through if it's their exercise venue?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the lease would impart exclusive use on the lessees. for it, so no, it wouldn't be available for public.
Councillor Ryan.
Has anyone had a look at the condition of that lane? Is it easily accessed, walkable, all the rest of it?
Well, I had a look, drove past yesterday actually and glanced up that way, and it's certainly not maintained. When you say it's easily walkable, you could walk through there, but there's a lot of grass and bush shrubbery, and parts of it are maintained and parts aren't. That's my observations. Councillor Rawson?
And yeah, that's my observation as well. It hasn't been maintained, and hasn't been a priority for council for many years to maintain it. So it's just been overgrown most of the time. And I think it says in here that it would cost us another $4,000 per annum to maintain it properly. So yeah, it's not being used. Yeah.
And look, in the wet times, it also does get a bit boggy in there. So, yeah, and it's not a priority. We don't maintain them. It's not on the maintenance schedule. Any further comment, discussion? All right. Well, I'll put this. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, everybody. Item 15 is Washpen Bridge construction completion. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Weaver, second by Councillor Batten. Any discussion at all? All right, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against, that's carried. Item 16 is the Canowindra and Eugowra Flood Study Review Funding. Mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Jones, seconded by Councillor Poole. Any discussion on that at all? Councillor Jones.
Just a minor question, sorry, Mr. Mayor, that I meant to ask earlier. Just want to seek clarification for the Eugowra study. Will that include East Eugowra drainage as part of that broader study?
For Mr. Mayor, I can confirm that it includes an analysis of stormwater drainage for Eugowra, and it's the same for Canowindra as well.
Any other discussion? Councillor Poole?
Yeah, just stating the obvious that it's an absolute necessity. So, yep.
Yep. All right, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against, that's carried. Item 17 is North Yeovil boundary adjustment. Move on to second. Moved by Councillor Batten, second by Councillor Nash. Councillor Batten.
Yeah, I do take the opportunity, Mr. Mayor, to make a comment and commend this recommendation. I mean, one of the real challenges with Yeovil is the fact that as it stands at the moment, it's literally North Yeovil, as it's referred to, is split from the rest of the community. When they come over this side for all their services, the people who die on this side actually then get transported into Dubbo Regional Council to be buried. I mean, so while you're alive, come our way. While you're dead, you go that way. I don't know what that says about Dubbo Regional Council. Well, what it'll do, it brings the community together. There's no doubt about it. The second thing is, I'll just note, the area where it's noted 1.2 kilometres, I think it is, in terms of wanting access to a footpath, bicycle track. I'd just like to highlight the fact that it's been asked for from Dubbo Regional Council, previously Wellington, and they didn't see it as a priority. There's been several near misses of people walking along there where they've actually been pushed into the table drain off the road. Most recently, an elderly person walking along there, and a person in a car stopped to help them get back out of that table drain. So I would hope to see that we would give that some priority when we do our mobility access plan in the future, pedestrian access and mobility plan, that we do actually address that shortcoming in that situation.
General Manager's whispered to me that he hopes that Dubbo does something about that before they hand it over. Wishful thinking. Councillor Rawson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, just a quick general question about resourcing of looking after those streets and the areas there. Will there be a need to upgrade the resources for maintenance that we have already in Yeovil? You know, the yards there, the sheds there, the equipment that's used to look after the streets and so on. Is there much of a hit on our ability to do that, or there's enough slack in the system there to be able to take those extra streets?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. From a roads perspective, it's quite easy. It's not a large expansion of the roads program to add these roads in, and they are in reasonable condition. From a town presentation side, the reserves that are there are currently leased, so council wouldn't have to undertake the management of those, and it would only be roadside mowing, which isn't a large burden, so it's expected that the town crew could keep up with that.
And then the cemetery?
Through you, Mr Chair, we currently have 12 operational cemeteries we manage, 11 operational and 1 closed that we manage. We have 1 cemetery officer. We will deal with whatever we have to deal with. And obviously at peak growth seasons, also it's the same time at urban services are very busy, so not necessarily the ability to be able to draw on other staff, but one that we'd have to factor in. More to the point, the Dubbo Regional Council, with the cemetery at the moment, provides grave digging, which is not a service that Common provides. So there would need to be an adjustment to the community's way of doing business, but that would come down to the funeral home contracting a grave digger should we take over that land and the operation of the cemetery.
Councillor Nash.
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you very much to the GM and the team, because I know that Yeovil people really wanted this, and most of them, I can't say speak for everyone, but it was brought up at a meeting that Peter and I were at, and I think it's just sensible myself. It just makes sense to me.
Through you, Mr Mayor, just to lead on from my previous whisper to yourself, there is an impost on council taking on this, both in depreciation and some operations. So that's why we are legitimately raising the issue of the footpath with Dubbo Regional Council to see whether there's some way that, even though we'll inherit a little bit more depreciation by having a capital asset that wasn't there before, but there may be not. There's no promises being made, but we've got to look at all those things. That's why this is only a step in the process. We're on board with it at this point, walk to the next step of the process, but we do have to constantly be diligent to make sure that we don't strike any unforeseen impacts that are disproportionate to what we're taking on. So that's my little word of caution that we're not quite there yet, but we're agreeing to march along this path at this point.
All right, any further discussion? All right, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against, that's carried. Item 18 is planning proposal 11 Strathnook Lane, Clifton Grove. And just, before we get to move in a second, I'll just draw your attention to item 1. The word approve is being replaced with endorse. Okay? So we'll move in a second, please. Moved by Councillor Poole, second by Councillor Nash. Any discussion on the planning proposal? No? I'll put that. All those in favour? Against, that's carried. Item 19 is the Committee of the Whole. Item 20, Development Application 2025/0020 proposed dwelling upon lot 104 DP 1058124, 1179 Peabody Road, Molong. Move in a second up, please. Moved by Councillor Jones, second by Councillor Nash. Any discussion on that at all? All right, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against, that's carried. Item 21 is questions for next meeting. Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Poole, second by Councillor Weaver. Does anybody have any questions for next meeting? Councillor Nash.
The traffic committee, we want the traffic committee to review the speed limit on Benjo Patterson Way with an aim of moving 50 kilometres zone out to the Cemetery Road. Yeah, bring the speed down to 50 k's on Starling Road, apparently, yeah. How'd I go, Matthew? Understand any of that?
So you want to move there? Yeah. Which is Cemetery and Bloomfield Road, isn't it? Cemetery and Bloomfield Road. No. You want it out past there? Is that what you're saying? So the first one is Starley Road going out of town, and then the next one up is Cemetery and Bloomfield Road, which is the cross intersection. So you want it to start nearly at the Pony Club. Yep. All right. Yeah, anything else? Questions for next meeting? Yep, Councillor Rawson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just one quick one. There's a couple of, at least 2 tourist boards, one in Boronor and one in Cargo, which are mainly for the vineyard district, you know, showing where the vineyards are around the district. They're maps, these quite large tourist boards. They've faded now to almost illegible. We saw
brown,
one when
are they
we were
brown
in,
ones?
Sorry?
Are they brown ones?
No, they're not brown. They do have, I mean, they're quite old, but they're in good prominent locations. They do have a Cabon logo on them, so we would have had been part of the funding for it. Would have been probably 20, 25 years ago, I'm guessing. I'm just wondering whether or not we can investigate having those, what was the term again used? It was reskinned, there we go, reskinned, with a new map of the locality and not just vineyards locations, but sites of interest in each of those locations. Now, I do know there's one in Boronor, there's one in Cargo, but there may be others. I'm not sure where the others are.
Is the Cargo one near the Loos?
The Cargo one is near the Loos, yeah, and it's so they're both in locations where tourists might stop to have a look at a tourist information board, and it's not a good look that these boards are really very faded. Got our logo on them. Yeah, so if you can investigate potentially upgrading those. The actual boards themselves, the actual, you know, they're solid and they're great. They just need reskinning.
So you're asking to investigation into the cost of how much it would cost to fix them up?
Yep, thanks. Yep.
And your regional installer of them, I suppose. Some history there. I think it's in conjunction with somebody else apparently, but we'll get all that info. All right. Any questions for next meeting?
I got one. Can we get a report on the proposed additional water extraction by Orange City Council from Summerhill Creek? I know there's been a number of residents have raised concerns about the proposed additional extraction by Orange City Council. If we can get a report on the implications of that, obviously the quantity of water that they're proposing, etc. Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, it won't be for next meeting. Yeah, future meeting, thanks. Councillor Weaver.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I've got a couple actually. I've been asked if I could get council to investigate the possibility of putting a walkway from Bluebell Estate into the CBD, which would be down through or down the side of Canowindra Produce and Glastonbury Estate. Could either be that way, or that they're talking either down Tilgar Street too. But it's very unsafe for people who are walking and people who just want to wander to the shops. They've got nowhere to go, you know. I mean, they haven't got a car, it makes it pretty difficult, and we've got no bus run. So, yeah, if we could investigate that, the possibility of a pathway.
Yeah, Councillor, through you, Mr Mayor, we could have a look at that. We obviously have our PAMP already, which has been gone through the community's processes, and we've got a certain amount of resources. I am aware that I've been talking to Rebecca about going to Canowindra because it has got the Town Improvement Fund. They could obviously look at projects that are outside our normal scope of works, priorities, etc. So that's something that we could possibly put on that list to go to the community with. So is that all right if we do it that way? We'll come back to you and identify it through that process.
That'd be fine. Great way to go. The other one is I've also been approached by the golf club. Now we've put the watering system in there on a computer-based setup. I don't know too much about it, but it uses water from the reticulation plant. There's leaks all through the golf course that are happening, and they need help to, I don't know, fix it, or what they've got to do to mend the problem or alleviate the problem. But they do need, I believe, that water to keep the course lush and green. But if it's causing problems, I don't know where we go from here. And it's always been a problem, the setup of that pipe through the golf course. But I mean, it's a great benefit when it works. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, just for clarity, are we talking about the irrigation lines to the course, or are we talking about yeah, so it's the water is from the wastewater treatment plant, and so it's recycled water that goes through.
I believe, through you, Mr Mayor, that there is a letter. There's been a letter to the Mayor about that. It could be a community opportunity for a community assistance grant for that sort of thing, because I believe you're talking about the retic system for the golf club after it's got the main, want a better return from our recycled water that's playing up. Is that right? Yeah, so that's obviously not our asset, and it's not yeah, but it's a golf club. It's its own. Yeah, but the actual sprinklers, the system is for the golf club to operate. Yes, no?
It operates off the...
Yeah, but is it occurring within the confines of the course, as in the watering system for the golf course?
Well, my understanding is that the golf club is on one title.
Yes.
The golf course comes in under the Showground Trust on another title. Yep. So,
but is the purpose of the water to keep the golf course green?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's for the golf club. The Crown doesn't really care about that.
Shouldn't it be for the Showground Trust?
Well, this is well, it's not simple, but if it's for the use and benefit of the golf club members that play golf, it would be, because it could be just a paddock, for example.
Yeah.
So that's. But we'll talk to the golf club,
yeah.
And like I said, probably more likely through the community assistance program.
Okay, thank you.
Just an ancillary to that, does that mean that there is a council-owned water line coming from the wastewater treatment plant going all the way across to the showground? It must be and owned by council, because it's not CTW.
Mr Mayor, we have a recycled water pipeline that services both the sports ground and the golf club. Yes.
Any questions? Any more questions for the next meeting? No? No questions? All right, well, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against, that's carried. Item 22 is business paper items for noting. Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Jones, second by Councillor Batten. Anybody wish to call any of those noting papers out at all? No? All good? Got a procedural motion already? No discussion. All right, well, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against, that's carried. Item 23 is matters of urgency. Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Jones, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Does anybody have anything urgent? Nope. All right, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against, that's carried. Item 24, could I say move that we move into Committee of the Whole? Moved by Councillor Jones, seconded by Councillor Nash. All those in favour? Against, that's carried. So back to item 19, it's been called into the Committee of the Whole. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Nash, seconded by Councillor Jones. Discussion. Councillor Rawson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be moving an amendment for a deferment of this decision to allow councillors to learn more about what this facility looks like and operates. I personally don't have enough information here to make a rational judgment on a facility that the local community has considerable concerns about. There's been a long history of community concern about the site, and it's notable that Cabonne Council previously rejected the development way back when, a bit over 10, 15 years ago, albeit about different concerns. It was about asbestos at the time. While the quarry seems to have been conducted largely within its conditions of approval, this asphalt plant appears to me to be somewhat of an overreach. There's something that we've got to keep in mind is that this is RU1 zoning, and industry of this nature is not specified as being admissible. But whether or not it is admissible comes down to an interpretation of whether the plant is a reasonable ancillary activity to extraction, the extractive industries. So RU1 zoning allows extractive activities and specifies what would be considered ancillary, namely, and I quote from the LEP, storing, stockpiling or processing of extractive materials by methods such as recycling, washing, crushing, sawing or separating. Nowhere does it allow the generation of asphalt, which is a separate industrial process only allowable in other industrial zones. This definition is the same for the LEP RU1 zone and the SEP, which would override it. And I note that the SEP that's been mentioned in our business papers refers to petroleum resources, but not petroleum processing, which is what this is. The report specifically refers to this DA as needing to, quote, be considered on its own merits rather than an extension of the previous conditions of development consent. I have many, many questions that need addressing, and these will take some time, and hence my amendment for a deferment. The statement of environmental effect is not in the business papers. Why not? It's mentioned a number of times in the report, but we should also get access to it. While the report notes that the EPA seemed satisfied that most of the concerns were met by the proponents, they did have initial quite considerable concerns about the emissions from the site, odour and the toxicity of those. There are conflicting statements about the wind data, the wind field data between the statement of environmental effects and this report. And why is that so? It's important because it affects the relative impact on neighbouring properties. Also, what's meant by mobile? This is meant to be a mobile and temporary. I don't understand what is meant by mobile. Is the plant to be shut down entirely between campaigns, removed and then reinstated for each campaign? Or will there be permanent structures in place and or permanent processes? If so, then the plant is neither mobile nor temporary. What are the likely emissions? What's the nature of those emissions, the chemistry, the likely odours, the drift fields? There's no detail on any of this in the report. What happens to the waste asphalt, particularly between campaigns? The site diagrams in the report are inadequate, they're blurry, I can't read them, they're too small to make out any details. I still don't know how big the facility is in relation to other buildings on the site. There's simply not enough information there for us as a group to make this decision now. I also note that Transport for New South Wales has not agreed to this proposal. So I make an amendment that this be deferred until we are able to go and assess the site and also have a look at an equivalent site, and I think there is an equivalent site not too far away that we can go and look at in operation, see it in operation, and get a much better sense of what we might be allowing within this East Geon community.
All right, just hang on a sec. So you're moving an amendment to defer it, so I need a seconder. Right, you're second, so hang fire, so I've got a seconder. Right, you remove it, you can't. Councillor Pearson has seconded, so we've got to move in a second on the amendment. Now, you're deferring it, you specifically said a site inspection, so I just would place comment on the site inspection that the plant is not there. So hang on. Plant is not there. And if you're referring to the one that's to the north of here, Three Rivers Road, that's a permanent plant. This is stipulated, this is a mobile plant. I think you stipulated a few questions there, or you didn't ask questions you commented on the report, but I think the Deputy General Manager's here may be able to answer some of those questions. So if you want to put those questions to her to answer some of those questions, she might be able to answer them right now.
I'm happy for her to answer some of those questions, but I suspect that in due deference to her ability to answer the questions, I think we probably need a much better understanding of what this development actually is, what it looks like. Yes, go and have a look at another one that, okay, perhaps it's slightly different. I've got...
yeah, but I don't think you can use reference to a plant. We need to go and have an inspection of a mobile plant. You cannot have an inspection of a permanent one which produces more bitumen. It's no comparison. So you're comparing apples to oranges there. That's my put to you there in regards to the site inspection of another plant that's close. If you're going to do an inspection, we need to inspect a mobile plant, and I don't know where there is one. So that's just answering that question. Going to the quarry and having a look at it, I don't think that advances our knowledge of what's going to happen there, because the mobile plant is not there. So it won't be there to see, it won't be there to operate, it won't be there to smell. All you're looking at is a quarry that's already in operation. But answer some of those other queries you may have, certainly. If you need those answered, I think you're entitled to get those answers, and we're entitled to get those answers. But they may be answerable right now.
I'm happy to hear some answers. Yep. Oh, okay. Well, okay. What is meant by mobile in this instance?
Mr. Chair, it's a plant that is brought to site and can be removed from site. It potentially will be operated by a third party. So it will come in on a campaign basis, be set up, carry out that campaign and be removed off site.
So between campaigns, there is no permanent infrastructure on site.
I guess that would be up to the operator as to how long it's stored on site before it went to another site. But the intent, it's capped at 30,000 tonnes per year production with a production rate of around 250 tonnes an hour. So they're only looking at a short-term campaign use. Now, whether it's stored on site or relocated off site would be the contractor's responsibility. It's certainly not operational on site outside those terms of the tonnages. And it's stated that it
Put it in
potentially
simple
will be.
terms, Heather, would it be similar to what's a permanent dwelling? Like if it's got wheels, it can move, but it doesn't mean it's going to be mobile all the time. It's up to the user, but the usage parameters is more around those hours that you're talking about.
Correct. The intent is that it's brought to site, used for a short space of time and relocated off-site.
So that sounds like a relatively small thing. I mean, it's not a big.
Microphones, if you don't talk, you have to push your microphone. Yep.
Well, I have a question. Why can't they already do it where there's already bitumen being made, which is boomy? Can it be expanded? And I've got a lot of questions. I've got a lot of disquiet about this myself because it says air quality. It's not a licensing matter for the EPA. And from personal experience, I know that once you get something there, and if it's got odour, if it's got emissions, if it's environmentally risky, no one really looks after you. So that's what worries me with this.
Through you, Mr Chair, the conditions of consent have been drafted to address that. So it's a temporary use, it's a limited life of approval. It requires annual reporting, it requires response to any complaints that are made to the company, and that those also have to be made available to us on an annual basis. And you've also got the undertaking from EPA, because there is an environmental protection licence that covers the quarry, so separate legislation, and they've indicated that they will also audit this plant as part of their audit of the quarry. So the intent is that there is a limited time to the life of this application, and there is the backup of auditing through the Environment Protection Authority, who also hold accountability on it.
Yeah, Councillor Rawson.
I'll keep on asking questions. Okay, thank you for that response, that answer. So it's sort of mobile, sort of temporary. There are conflicting statements I noticed between what was mentioned in the statement of environmental effects about the wind field, the wind data. There seemed to be some confusion about which was the prevailing dominant wind direction. One part of the report, it's from the southwest. Another part saying that only 25% of the wind goes from the east or from the west. This is all very conflicting. If we had the statement of environmental effects in front of us, we'd be able to adjudicate on that. So I wouldn't want to make this decision until I got at least that information available to me. I don't know enough about the sort of the chemistry of the emissions from a site like this. This is a site that is. This is a process which is normally found in industrial areas or well away from people, and well away from dwellings, well away from what is being suggested here. So,
Can I just jump in there for a second?
Yep.
You're making more statements rather than asking the questions there, but in making that statement, I believe there's one in Parks. It's in a modern industrial area in town, a bitumen plant. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think you that to correct the notion that it's these plants are in industrial areas. It's important to understand which Heather knows more about than I do, but the receptors, the distance to receptor is the important factor. So I believe 800 metres is the case in this one, Heather?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the nearest dwelling in this case is there's two dwellings on the proponent's own property. The next furthest one away is, I think, around about 770, 760 metres. In discussions with air monitoring consultants, 500 metres is the general accepted level beyond which it's accepted that it's quite, you can mitigate the circumstances. So if a dwelling is less than 500 metres from the source site, that's where you've got to really look very closely at your mitigation. Beyond 500 metres, there's enough air movement and separation distance between the receptors to actually ensure that there are no long-term adverse impacts. So in this case, the adjoining properties that are outside the ownership of the company are over 750 metres away, up to 1,200, 1,500 metres at the closest points. And the general information is that when you've got proximity 500 metres and less is where you really have to manage it. Here you can actually deal with mitigating it and reducing it. So it does stack up. You mentioned the statement of environmental effects. As we've often said to councillors, anyone wishing to have access to any of that information, you've only got to make that inquiry of us and we'll make that available. Not everyone wants to access the information, but we've always encouraged councillors with questions about a report before council to contact the DGM, and we can make that available. So there's no problems with doing that. It's a public document and it's readily available. You only need to ask, which you have, so that can be made readily available to you to peruse. Councillor Nash, you mentioned about why can't it be somewhere else. We have to deal with the development application that's before us. The business profile or the reason for why a person's decided to build a house where they are or to put a plant where they are is their decision. We have to do the environmental assessment on what's in front of us. So it's not a planning head of consideration to say, where else did you think of in this case? It's going, we have an application for us, we must assess the application before us, and the structure of the company or their profile and what they wish to do is their domain.
Councillor Rawson.
I'll keep going. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did note that Transport for New South Wales has not agreed to the proposal. How do you have? I mean, there's certainly what I would class as a considerable increase in traffic movements, particularly during campaigns. Was on 182 movements per day extra. That's what I saw in the report. That seems like a lot to me. Is that going to have an adverse impact on trafficability around that area? Is that something that we have to deal with? And the fact that Transport for New South Wales has not agreed to this, we should take that into consideration.
Through you, Mr. Chair, again, the conditions of consent drafted, which are based on a commitment from the company that they were going to revise their traffic management plan. That is actually the document that goes with the actual quarry. There is an offset because the aggregate that would have been otherwise going off-site will actually be on-site and processed in this asphalt plant. So some of those truck movements negate one another in that there would have been the original equation of the material moving off-site as aggregate versus some of this material now being moved off-site being treated for asphalt. So the answer to the question is that Mitchell Highway in the vicinity of that site has been upgraded in very, very recent times. It's now a divided road coming through there, which is an added traffic management advantage, I suppose you'd say. There are conditions of consent that require upgrading of the traffic management plan, and also requirements that all vehicles must be I suppose regulated is the word that comes to mind, so there's no queuing of vehicles and there's no storage of vehicles off-site waiting to access the site. It was up to the company to coordinate the arrival and departure of the vehicles to be compliant, not only with this approval, but the major projects approval for the quarry.
Just while you're thinking, well, obviously, just going back to procedures here, we've got an amendment to defer, we've got it seconded. Does anybody wish to speak against deferring it? Speak against the amendment at this stage? Councillor Jones?
I'm happy to speak against the deferment, but I'm also happy for Councillor Rawson
Yeah,
to continue to
Yeah,
ask this
I'll
question.
go back. We're in committee of the whole, but we can go back here. So you want to reserve a right to speak against it? Okay, Councillor Ross, another question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the end, what does concern me probably the most is the fact that this relies on an interpretation of the zoning to say that this is an ancillary activity to extractive industries. Now, the zoning, both the definition of what an extractive activity is the same for the RU1 zoning as it is for the SEP, and neither of those refers to this type of activity as being considered ancillary. It actually it specifies quite clearly what is appropriate in relation to extractive industries, namely recycling, washing, crushing, sawing and separating. Whereas this is a whole extra new process, which is an industrial process of the creation of asphalt. I understand the rationale for having it on a site next to the extractive industry. I do understand that. But the actual zoning I don't think allows it. This relies on an interpretation of that zoning, which I don't agree. I just don't agree with that interpretation.
So is there a question there about that interpretation?
Is there precedence? Is
Is it permissible?
it permissible? And is there precedence?
Through you, Mr Chair, the assessment has been based on it being processing, that it is compliant and it is permissible. And that's the view from assessing it. Understand that you're questioning the technical acronym of my report. I'm saying that my assessment of this is that it is permissible, it does meet the definition, and it is processing.
Except that the word processing of extracted materials is defined specifically in the LEP and in the SEP definition as recycling, washing, crushing, sawing or separating. It actually specifies what processing means. It doesn't say anything about anything beyond those, and anything beyond that is not permissible. So I actually don't think it's permissible.
You're entitled to your opinion, Councillor. My report is before you.
Councillor Jones.
Mr Mayor, I'd speak against the amendment moved by Councillor Rawson on a couple of points. Firstly, in terms of site inspection, as it's been said, we can't really compare, well, it hasn't been built out there. Go and look at it, but also we can't compare because the development application and the conditions are specific to that site. I would also note that when we look at deferring of development applications, is that in our items for noting today, there is an item there called item number 4 in our items for noting, statement of expectation, order 2024, development application assessment timeframes. Every time we delay these or defer these matters, our reporting periods are increasing. The state government are putting additional pressures on councils to make sure we get through our development applications as quick as possible. Now, I understand if there's a very good reason to defer something, we should be doing that. However, I think that we've had this report for 6 days now. Anyway, we've had an opportunity to read this report, ask any additional questions of the Deputy General Manager of Services, to look at it. I understand and I actually sympathise with some of the concerns raised here, and I'll speak about that when we move to the other part of the debate. But in terms of deferring this matter, I'd urge councillors to seriously consider doing that. We've had ample time to sense the proponent, an objector spoke to us 2 weeks ago at the public forum, had ample time to read the report and to ask any questions of staff, and I would also raise concerns about what sort of message this sends to doing business in Cabonne. I'm not saying I'm for or against the development application. What I'm saying is deferring would make me, as if I was looking at doing business in Cabonne, as like, well, this council is going to be slow to deal with.
Any other discussion? Councillor Batten?
If procedurally, Mr Mayor, if someone wants to speak against, for it, I actually want to speak against the amendment.
Yep, stand by. Anybody else want to speak for? Again? Councillor Rawson.
Really just a comment about what Councillor Jones has just said.
Mr Mayor, can I interrupt for a minute? Can I just recommend to Councillor Rawson, through you, that actually it might be best to actually reserve your right of reply rather than address Councillor Jones as now, that you actually address it, any concerns that I may raise in addition to Councillor Jones. Your choice.
Your choice.
I was going to comment on an argument that was made relating to the deferment.
Yeah, but you'll be able to do that in a sum up if you want at the end. Or you can do it now.
No, it has to be now because it relates to the amendment. It relates to the deferment.
Yeah, but it's all to do after.
Oh, because you're going to speak first. I'm with you now.
So you have a right of reply.
I'm with you.
Anybody else want to speak for the amendment?
Thank you, Councillor Batten.
Anybody for the amendment? Councillor Batten.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I actually want to speak against the deferment, and I appreciate where Councillor Rawson's coming from, but the original proposal for this site, as the report clearly states, was approved by the Land and Environment Court. There's been a number of modifications along the way, and this submission, application was originally submitted in 2021. 3 years of ample time to consider, I think, what's in front of us. And I know that, it is a temporary facility. It is mobile. I believe that we've got enough information in front of us here to make the decision about whether we want to actually approve or reject it. I think that's a decision we should be referring to, not just deferring it again. It's time, I think, we actually made a decision one way or the other. So I would speak against the amendment to defer on those grounds.
Thank you. Any other discussion at all before we go to Councillor Rawson? No? Councillor Rawson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And I thank Councillor Batten for his suggestion. Just to respond to the first thing you said, Councillor, was that the Land and Environment Court basically allowed this development, but they allowed the quarry. They didn't. That's a completely separate development to the one that's in front of us today. We're here talking about an asphalt plant. Going back to Councillor Jones, I understand your point that we have statistics that we have to maintain. We're being put under a lot of pressure by the state government to keep our development application processing as quickly as possible. But I think that shouldn't be used as an argument if, for important decisions. If a decision is important enough and there's not enough information for us to make a clear decision on that process, then we should defer until we have enough information. And that should be the rule of thumb, rather than pushing something through just to keep the application rates as quickly as possible.
All right, thank you. All right, now, be clear, everybody, I will put this, so what we're putting is the amendment. So the amendment is that we don't decide on this moment, that it's deferred, requesting further information from staff. Right? And or a site inspection. That's what has been put up in the amendment. So I'll put that and show of hands. All those in favour? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Against? So that's defeated the amendment. So we're back to the original motion. Does anybody want to speak to the motion? I think Councillor Nash ended up moving that. Was it you? Who was the original mover? All right, does anybody wish to, we don't have to get it from the mover in a second. Does anybody, Councillor Jones?
I'll go out on a limb, Mr. Mayor. Look, I actually sympathise with some of the concerns raised here, and I'm speaking for the recommendation, but as I said, I sympathise with some of the concerns raised here in terms of odour and that. However, unfortunately, for me, looking at this on purely planning grounds, I don't think we have enough reason not to consent this, not to provide consent for this development application, as the Deputy General Manager has explained. The Deputy General Manager of Services has explained that this is compliant and is permissible on the land used. In terms of, and one of the concerns I had was the odour, but in terms of the odour, the Deputy General Manager has said that experts say that approximately 500 metres is acceptable, and this is over 750 metres away. So that's why, because of the planning grounds, purely planning grounds, which is what we're supposed to be looking at here, I can't find any reason that we shouldn't be approving this today. And I would say that if we don't approve it, we need to come up with some fairly valid reasons which would stand up in the Land and Environment Court, which I don't believe we can.
Thank you. Anybody wish to speak against? Councillor Rawson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'll be voting against this proposal, and I've already expressed my concerns in other questions, so I won't express them again, other than to say that I disagree that it is permissible. I don't think it is. I think there's a very sound argument that we could very easily defend in the Land and Environment Court if it ever went that far, that there is no specific allowance for this sort of activity in relation to extractive industries in an RU1 zoning, and nor in the SEP that may override it. They both are quite specific about what an extractive industry is, and to call this an extractive industry just simply because it uses some of the materials from that industry is inappropriate. There's plenty of industrial processes that use materials that are benign or seemingly benign, that are mined in certain locations. They're taken away, they're processed and post-processed for other reasons, but they're very much more toxic, and they're put into industrial areas well away from people. So why isn't this treated in exactly the same way? So just because it happens to use the raw material that is from the quarry immediately next door, doesn't mean that it's necessarily an appropriate ancillary activity to that.
Thank you. Speaker 4? Any other speaker 4? Councillor Weaver?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'll speak for it. I agree with what Councillor Jones has said, and quite honestly, I can't see why we can't make a decision on this today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nash?
Yeah, well, I think we are, aren't we? But I just think that some things need to go to the Land and Environment Court, and this is one of them. I just think that we don't know enough about what's going to happen in this area. It's around farms, it's around people. I just think the air quality assessments, the emissions, the odour and the carcinogens, we don't, as Councillor Rawson said, we do not know enough about it, and I'm definitely voting against it.
Thank you. Any other speakers for? All right, well, that's the case. We're going to put the motion, which is a division, so I'm going to show our hands. All those for? Here, 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. Against? All the motions carried, 5-4. Thank you, everybody. That concludes our ordinary meeting. So I'll get everybody now